All right, so are we still in a Bitcoin bull run, or is this thing over? That seems to be the question on everyone's mind right now, especially after that wild ride we saw Bitcoin take from like, what was it, 109,000 at its peak down to 83,000?
Yeah, 83,620 in March, to be exact.
Oh, March. Yeah, that was a rough month.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you've got President Trump kind of shaking things up with that whole pro-crypto stance of his.
Oh, yeah, and that executive order for a Bitcoin strategic reserve.
Exactly. It's like a whole new layer of complexity got added to the mix.
It definitely is. So how are we going to tackle this deep dive?
Well, I figured we could start by just laying out all the different perspectives we've got in front of us. We've got some heavy hitters like Chamath Palihapitiya weighing in.
Right.
We've got those AI powerhouses, ChatGPT and Grok AI spitting out their analyses. Plan B is giving us the on-chain data deep dive. And of course, we can't forget Archmage's take on the whole thing.
Always a unique perspective.
Always. So basically, we're going to try to make sense of all of this and hopefully come out the other side with at least a slightly better understanding of what the heck is going on.
Yeah, because like you said at the beginning, it's the million-dollar question right now. Is this bull run still alive, or is it about to kick the bucket?
Right. So why don't we start with the folks who are saying this bull might still have some legs left, the optimists in the room. What are they pointing to?
Well, one of the big things they bring up is the historical pattern we see after Bitcoin's halving events.
Halvings.
Yeah, so just as a quick refresher, a halving is when the reward for mining Bitcoin gets cut in half.
Right.
And historically, these events have been followed by, some pretty significant price increases. And the last halving was back in April 2024. So some people are thinking, we're still riding that wave.
Okay, so basically they're saying history is on their side.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But they're not just relying on the past. They're also looking at, the whole economic situation globally.
Yeah.
I mean, growth projections are looking pretty decent right now, steady 3.3% for 2025.
Right.
But there are some whispers about a potential slowdown in the U.S.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and if that happens, well, Bitcoin's whole narrative as a hedge against inflation could really gain some serious traction.
Right, because suddenly people are looking for somewhere safe to put their money.
Exactly.
So it's not just the halving cycle, it's the whole economic backdrop that's making them think this bull run isn't over.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the human perspective. But what about those AI brains we mentioned? What are ChatGPT and Grok AI saying about all this?
So their analyses are actually leaning towards no as well.
Really?
Yeah, but with some pretty big caveats.
Uh-oh, caveats? What kind of caveats?
Well, ChatGPT, for example, is suggesting we keep a close eye on certain key indicators.
Like what?
Things like trading volume and network activity.
Okay, so basically it's saying don't get too comfortable. Things could change pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, it's like they're saying we're not out of the woods yet.
So even the optimists are urging a little bit of caution here.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
All right, so we've heard from the folks who think the bull run might still be alive, but now let's flip the coin.
Okay.
Let's look at the evidence that suggests this bull might be running out of steam. What are the pessimists pointing to?
Well, first of all, there's that price drop we talked about earlier. I mean, we can't just ignore that Bitcoin fell from its peak, and that was a pretty substantial correction.
Yeah,
and some technical analysts are looking at that and seeing it as a big red flag, a bearish signal.
So basically they're saying what goes up must come down.
Yeah, kind of. And then there's the Fear and Greed Index.
Ah, the Fear and Greed Index.
Which right now is deep in extreme fear territory.
Extreme fear, yikes.
Yeah, it's not looking too good. It suggests investors are pretty spooked right now.
Right.
And, that kind of fear can become a self-fulfilling prophecy leading to even further decline.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's not. And then we've got Plan B and his deep dive into the on-chain data.
Okay, Plan B, lay it on us.
Well, he's noticed that the 200-week moving average and the realized price are basically flatlining.
Flatlining?
Yeah. And these are metrics that usually go crazy during bull markets.
Huh. So basically they're just kind of sitting there like nothing's happening.
Pretty much. He's not saying the bull is dead, but he's definitely raising an eyebrow.
Okay, so he's not panicking, but he's definitely concerned.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
And what's interesting is that he's actually predicting new all-time highs for Bitcoin in 2025.
Right.
But these flatlining metrics, they're suggesting that it might be a pretty bumpy ride between now and then.
Yeah, buckle up, because it could get wild.
So let me just try to summarize this. We've got historical patterns and some AI predictions on the bull run continues side, but then we've got this price drop, the fearful sentiment, and Plan B's on-chain red flags waving on the other side.
Yeah, it's getting complicated.
It really is.
And we haven't even touched on what Chamath and Archmage have to say yet.
Oh boy.
Buckle up, because their perspectives bring a whole other level of nuance to this conversation.
All right, well, I am buckled up. I'm ready to bring on the nuance.
Let's do it. So let's jump into that all-in podcast. Chamath was on there and he was talking about how, things are feeling a bit compressed in the market right now. But
compressed?
Yeah, that's the word he used. But he's still seeing potential for gains, especially for what he calls the asset light working in middle class.
Oh, that's played.
Yeah, basically folks who don't have a ton of, stocks and real estate and all that. He thinks Bitcoin could be a way for them to kind of, level the playing field a bit.
Interesting. So even though things are tight, he's saying there's still room for some folks to come out ahead. And Bitcoin's the key.
Yeah, that's kind of his take. But then you had Larry McDonald on that same podcast.
Oh, yeah, Larry McDonald. What was his take on things? Because I remember it being a bit different.
Yeah, it was quite a contrast. He's painting a much gloomier picture. He's talking about high debt levels, inequality, and the government basically trying to control inflation and how all that could lead to, some serious economic turmoil.
So he's thinking things are going to get a lot worse before they get better.
Pretty much. And if that happens, he's saying hard assets like copper might be a better bet than tech stocks.
Wow. So it's like Chamath and McDonald are looking at the same world but seeing two completely different things.
It is fascinating, isn't it? It just goes to show you that no one has a crystal ball.
Right.
I mean, they're both looking at the big picture, but they're focusing on different details and coming to different conclusions.
So it's less about saying who's right and who's wrong, and more about understanding that there's a whole spectrum of possibilities out there.
Exactly.
And that brings us to Archmage. And, well, his perspective is always a bit of a wild card. He's coming right out and saying the Bitcoin bull run is over. Done. Finish kaput.
Yeah, no beating around the bush with him.
So what's his reasoning? What's making him so bearish on Bitcoin?
Well, he's pointing to a bunch of different factors that he thinks, signal a turning point. For one thing, he's looking at indicators like Bitcoin's net unrealized profit loss.
NUPL.
Yeah, NUPL, and the MVRV Z-score, and these tend to peak during bull markets.
Right?
Well, he's saying they've already topped out.
So for him, those metrics are flashing red.
Big time. But that's not all. He's also been watching the altcoin market.
Old coins, what are they telling him?
He's noticed that a lot of altcoins have already peaked. Some of them are even hitting all-time highs from years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And to him, that suggests that the broader crypto market, the whole ecosystem is losing momentum.
So it's like he's not just looking at Bitcoin in isolation. He's looking at how the whole crypto world is behaving.
Exactly. And then you've got the Bybit hack. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, the biggest hack in crypto history.
Yeah, he's pointing to that as another warning sign. And he's also saying that on-chain activity across various blockchains is slowing down.
So basically, he's seeing less interest, less innovation, less of everything that usually drives a bull market.
Pretty much. He's painting a pretty pessimistic picture.
Yeah, peaking indicators, struggling altcoins, a massive hack, shaking everyone's confidence. It's a lot to take in. And it's the complete opposite of what most of the other sources are saying.
I know, it's a stark contrast. So how do we make sense of it all?
Right. That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to get caught up in all the hype or the doom and gloom, but we have to try to be objective here.
Exactly. We have to consider, the biases and motivations of each source. I mean, Archmage, he created this podcast, right?
You did.
So maybe he's got a reason to present a contrarian view, something to get people talking and thinking.
It's definitely something to think about.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe he's just trying to stir the pot.
Maybe. So where does that leave us? We've heard from the AI analysts, the seasoned investors, the on-chain data experts, and the contrarian podcaster. It's a lot to process.
It really is.
But I think that's kind of the nature of Bitcoin. It's young, it's volatile, and there's no easy answer to the question of whether the bull run is over or not.
It's like we're in this weird limbo right now. Historical trends are saying one thing, current indicators are saying another. You've got AI predictions and on-chain data kind of duking it out.
And then you throw in the human element, the optimists versus the pessimists, and it all just adds up to a big question mark hanging over the Bitcoin market.
Right. So is this bull run just taking a breather, or is it about to flatline?
That is the million-dollar question.
Okay, so let's put you on the spot. Based on everything we've talked about today, what's your gut feeling? Is this Bitcoin bull run over, yes or no?
Man, you're really gonna make me choose, huh?
I am.
Well, if I have to pick a side, I'd say no.
No. So you're still in the bull camp,
Yeah.
even with all those warning signs we talked about.
Now, hold on. Let me clarify. I'm not saying we're immune to a correction. I mean, Bitcoin's price has got up so much that some sort of pullback is probably going to happen.
Okay, so you're not ruling out a dip, but you're still thinking long-term. This bull has more room to run.
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah. So what makes you so confident? What fundamentals are you seeing that are making you think this bull isn't done yet?
Well, for one thing, adoption is still on the rise. I mean, more and more businesses are accepting Bitcoin. More institutional investors are getting involved. Governments are even starting to explore how they can use it.
Right, like President Trump and that whole executive order thing?
Exactly. It's a sign that Bitcoin is becoming more mainstream, more legitimate.
Okay, so basically you're saying Bitcoin is gaining traction.
Yeah.
It's becoming more accepted.
Right. And on top of that, you've got all the technological advancements happening behind the scenes, like the Lightning Network.
Oh yeah, the Lightning Network.
It's making Bitcoin transactions faster, cheaper, easier to use. And that could open up a whole new world of possibilities for how Bitcoin is used.
So even though the price might be a bit wobbly right now, the long-term outlook for Bitcoin is still looking pretty good.
That's my take.
Yeah.
Of course, the crypto market is unpredictable by nature.
Oh yeah, always.
So there's always some risk involved. But when I look at the big picture, I think Bitcoin is still in its early stages of adoption. There's a lot of growth potential there.
So you're saying we might see some bumps along the way, but overall you're still bullish on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right. Well, that's definitely something for our listeners to chew on.
It is. And, at the end of the day, I think the biggest lesson here is to think critically. Don't just blindly follow some analyst or prediction. Do your own research. Look at things from different angles. Make your own decisions based on, your own risk tolerance and your own goals.
Well said. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there in the Bitcoin world. Passionate opinions, conflicting information. It's up to each of us to sift through all of that and figure out what makes sense for us.
Exactly. And, this isn't just about making money. It's about being part of something bigger. It's about being part of a revolution that could change the world.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the price swings and the day-to-day drama, but at its core, Bitcoin is about something much more fundamental. It's about freedom, it's about innovation, it's about the future of money.
Exactly. And that story that's just getting started.
All right, so buckle up, everyone, because this Bitcoin ride is far from over.
Nope. And it's going to be a wild one.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.